What happened was on August 15th, about 2 a.m., the Weather Service put out a flash flood warning. And of course, we're all asleep. Didn't know a thing. As it turned out, I actually woke up that night because I heard the thunder and lightning. There was a thunderstorm to the north of us. We woke up that morning to find out that it had flooded so bad. Beatty Cutoff Road was closed. The road to Scotty's Castle was closed. You couldn't even drive to Stovepipe. Caltrans was out there working on the road. It remained closed to the north that day. But about 10 a.m. on the 15th, we had another flash flood warning that there could be flooding in the area, that summer monsoonal moisture. Here we are in Death Valley, the hottest, driest spot in the country. What's our average rainfall? Less than 2 inches a year. And here we just had a storm that night, and now they're predicting another storm. But by 6 p.m., nothing had happened. The visitor center closed down. Just as a precaution, our rangers closed Artist Pallet Drive to traffic. Up at here, they closed 20 Mule Team Road to traffic. We don't have authority to close Highway 190. We couldn't do that. But everybody went home. I went home. At about 7:30 at night, it was still daylight at 7:30, but starting to change. I saw the thunder and lightning. I saw the dark clouds of a storm. You know, we live just 3 miles north of Furnace Creek up at Cow Creek, and I told my roommate, I said, I think I'm going to go check out, see what's happening with that storm. I remember the smaller storm we'd had up here the year before, and it was interesting seeing the water flowing. And Alan said, nah, I don't want to go. So I got in my pickup, my 4-wheel drive, stopped at headquarters, picked up a radio, said hi to the superintendent who was out there looking at the storm too, and he gave me a hard time for being a storm chaser, kind of teased me. And I came out and just past the end, it's like, wow, it's raining, it's sprinkling. I got to where you saw the devastation of the vegetation there by the springs at Travertine. It's raining harder. I'm getting a little more excited. Real rain in Death Valley, wow. I drive just a little bit farther, and it's raining so hard my windshield wipers can't keep up. And I'm thinking, holy cow, you know what this means. I knew what it meant. It meant we're in trouble. I didn't know for sure how long it had been raining in this area, but already as I'm driving and I'm starting to thinking, you know, Charlie, you should probably turn around. There's already a little bit of water just from so much rain right there flowing across the road like you could get in any road when it's raining hard. And as I was coming up this road in this direction, and I'm just thinking of turning around, I see the headlights in front of me. And I'm like, what the heck? Who's at Zabriskie Point? So instead of turning around, I go ahead and drove up to Zabriskie Point, pulled in here. It's still pouring buckets of rain, and there's 3 vehicles parked in Zabriskie Point, down here in the parking area. In very quick fashion, as abrupt and as authoritatively as I could, I said, don't drive this way, you'll die. Stay here, you should be safe. It had never overflowed the bank here. I thought they'd be safe. Or better yet, follow me and get the hell out of here. I told them that real quick. I wanted to get out of there. I felt it was going to flood. I got into my car, paused a moment, honked the horn, drove to the end here, waited. Nobody moved. What did I do? Get out of there. You bet. Got out of there. I headed down the road, and as I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw the lights of one car starting to move. Okay, they're going to follow. All right, they should be okay. I'm still headed out of there. I didn't wait to see. I didn't wait to hold their hand, but they should be okay. I didn't find out till the next day what happened. But as I drove a little further down, and I could see some water gathering, but I still wasn't too worried because this water had never topped out over here. But already, unbeknownst to me, it was beginning to flood off Echo Canyon and the side canyons. And in the time from when I headed up here at 7:30 to this time, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to 8, it had gotten dark. So it's dark, my lights are on, and then I got hit with the water from the side and my vehicle started to slide off the road. Ooh. Now, I have to admit, I did check. I didn't make a mess in the car or in my pants, but my heart was going pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. It was. And, you know, what do? You only got a second. I hit the gas, it went through the water, and it was like, whew, and I better get the heck out of here. I've got a flood behind me. So I'm going down, I'm just going through the curves in Travertine. oh, who the hell? Somebody's coming up towards me. So I roll down my window. Again, quick, abruptly, authoritatively, I'm like, don't go that way, you're going to die. There's a flood coming. Turn around, follow me. Goodbye, good luck. And a second vehicle, same thing, coming. I gave them the same 10-second, you know, follow me, get the heck out of here. There's a flood coming. Oh, I forgot to mention, that radio I brought with me wasn't working. I've been calling on the radio going, there's going to be a flood, we got it. It wasn't working. So I knew I had to go to the visitor center. Got to the visitor center, got on the radio, called San Bernardino, our dispatch. They called the chief ranger. They got her and her people out of the bed and headed down. I mentioned to the superintendent quickly that it looked like it was, I knew there was a flood coming, and I headed out. Just a few seconds, just driving from the inn to there, hop in on the radio just a little bit, and I drove back to the inn, less than 10 minutes. And in that time, it had went from bone dry to full flood. The flood was in full force. The water was coming through past the inn. It was already topping out and flowing over the road down towards the ranch a bit. No way could you drive across it. It was in full force. And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, oh my God, what happened to the three vehicles behind me? What happened to them?
Did the two turn around?
The two did turn around. I did see them. The two turned around that I just talked to. I saw each of them turn around as I went past them. They each turned around. I don't know who they were to this day. And it wasn't until the next day that we found out the true dimensions of this flood. As it turned out, all three vehicles that had been here in what turned out to be a very dangerous spot had tried to follow me, but they didn't have four-wheel drive. They didn't drive through the floodwaters that I'd driven through, and they just ended up stranded right over a little bit below where the black vehicle is, on the highest ground possible. Their vehicles weren't even damaged. They survived, though one of them told the superintendent the next day that he was born again that night, because they heard that water roaring for hours. They thought they might die. Unfortunately, two people did die in that flood. We'll never know what happened. I don't know if they were driving up or down, somewhere a mile or somewhere above us, and you'll see the devastation to the road up above. There was a couple from the Central Valley of California, mother and a son, and we don't know what happened. Their seat belts were still on. We hope it was quick. Somehow either the road collapsed, gave way, the water washed over the road, something happened. They didn't survive. We had 5 people, 1 vehicle on the Badwater Road. They had floodwaters in front of them. They went to turn around. There were floodwaters behind them. They stayed out all night, but they survived and did fine. We had helicopters the next day that flew around the whole park. It was summertime, so luckily there weren't people all over in the backcountry. So the only ones that spent the night were the 3 vehicles here, the 1 vehicle on Badwater, and the 2 vehicles that survived the flood up by Ryan Junction, and I'll tell you their story when they get up here. So since this flood, we've talked to hydrologists, to geologists, and they said what happened, that the flood of August 15th, 2004 was possibly what we'd call a 100 to 500 year event. So I kind of absolved myself a little bit from not knowing what to expect, because I've only been here 14 years. But it overflowed the cut. The Weather Service looked at it and extrapolated, and they believe there was somewhere at least above 2 inches of rain in that hour to hour and a half of flooding. So a whole year's worth of rain coming down over this whole watershed up towards Mount Perry and Dante's View, up towards Pyramid Peak and all the funerals here. This whole watershed was hit by a very slow moving, intense thunderstorm, and it caused this 100 to 500 year event, so that as the water came down to go through the gulch, Gower Gulch, it couldn't handle the amount of water. And what happens when water can't make a tight turn or a cut? It starts to rise, and it rose. And even though the after effects of the flood, we see how this has been cut down at least 5 feet. It's much lower than it used to be. It still couldn't absolve all the water, and it overflowed, and it floated off the 20-ton restrooms that were sitting over here in their blocks. They're 200 feet down. It ripped out the bulletin board. The only thing left is that no camping post. We have to compliment the maintenance employee who put that in the ground. They did a good job. It survived. But I would have been totally wrong. I'm glad I didn't spend the night with those 3 vehicles there and sitting there blissfully thinking it would be safe, because it wasn't safe. It's a good thing they moved, because they were not in a good spot. I never anticipated that this would overflow the cut. Now I know better. And the new parking lot is going to sit closer to the road on higher ground.